There we go. All right, here we go. Good morning, everybody. It looks like people are just filtering in, so I want to say good morning. Please say hello in the chat this morning if you were here, so we know who's joining us, what organization you're with, and we'll give it a moment for everybody to get joined in. Just say hello in chat. Well, my name is Chelsea Rosti, and I am the Director of Business Innovation for the City of Montrose. Alongside me, we have Sue Hansen, County Commissioner, and Kate Adams, our DART Program Assistant. Kate will be the moderator today for our weekly business call, and Sue's going to chat with us about a couple of really exciting topics this morning. And at any time, if you have a question, please, at the very bottom, if you sort of put your cursor over the bottom, you see Q&A. So if you type your question into that helps us moderate it, and you can ask questions of Sue or myself. City Manager Bill Bell is on the webinar as well, and so he can answer through the chat if needed. And so that is how we will do that this morning. Good morning, Faith. Good morning, Daniel. Kathy, good morning. And City Manager Bill Bell. Dan Cento from Region 10, good morning. All right, awesome. Well, people are still hopping on. So Sue is here this morning. We have a couple of kind of interesting topics. So the main topic for today is innovations that stick. And so ways that businesses and organizations in our community have taken COVID and turned it into an opportunity to think about operations, to think about slowing down for a moment and how we're doing everything, and then how they will carry those innovations into the next phase of how we move forward. And so that's what we'll talk about last. But first, Sue is here to join us just to sort of address a lot of the questions that we've been receiving about restaurants. And so I didn't want to answer those questions. So Sue is taking one for the team, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about restaurants and what we do know, which isn't a ton. So Sue, without further ado, I will turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Chelsea. And thanks, Kate, for moderating us and keeping us under control. So good morning, everybody. I don't have a whole lot. I mean, obviously, the governor has not released any dates for opening indoor restaurants, but in sort of enfolding what the topic of this call is about is innovation and creativity. Is I thought it would be useful to have a conversation for those of you that are in the restaurant business about planning, and it really starting to think now about what might you do as, I mean, you can look at surrounding counties and see what surrounding counties are doing in terms of 30% occupancy. There's all sorts of options that people are looking at for in-dining restaurant. But one of the things that I think is important is for you to think ahead about what you might do. We all know that some of the underpinnings here about keeping the COVID virus from spreading is distance. So how can you take out a few chairs? I know at our board meeting today, we're talking about how do we take, we need to take out chairs so that it's not, so we don't encourage people to sit right next to each other. So as you think about the layout of your restaurant and what you're going to do, think about that's going to be the number one thing. That's been one of the number one underlying messages in all of the safety orders, is that we need to stay apart from each other. So that you can expect that to be something that you're going to have to look at. And also, your restaurant will never be cleaner than it will ever be at this point and in time with this COVID virus, is that, making sure that you encourage payments where, what they call contactless payments, so that nobody's touching. You're going to be doing a lot of sanitizing. You're going to be doing a lot of Clorox bleaching and that sort of thing. And so thinking about your cleaning staff or how you can double time your staff so that they can actually do some of this prep after people are in the restaurant, spacing of your restaurant. I know I talked to Terry at Padre. She was talking about doing some plants to separate things. So while we don't know exactly what the guidance is going to be, there's always a little wiggle room in some of these orders where you can think creatively about how you can still keep people apart, but also make some money, bring some people into your establishment. So, when I think about my life as a business person, there was always hurdles. You know, Medicare wasn't going to pay anymore for some certain procedure, and all of a sudden I'd have to think about another way I was going to get that done, or did I need to diversify my patient load? So thinking of those things ahead of time can really be useful. And I actually have been downloading surrounding counties and even into Utah, some of their guidance for their food establishment, so I can kind of think about what might be coming, what might be realistic. And I just think that if you're planning ahead and you're thinking about it, making good choices, being responsible about how we're doing this, and keep in mind that the masks are not going to go away. I've seen a number of people with the plexiglass. We really, even though we have mask rebellious people, where's mine? I'm still carrying my mask around, and I'm wearing it whenever. And even if I'm in the presence of people that aren't, I still do. So you're probably going to have to still continue to do that. So again, we don't know the answers of what's going to happen, but we want you to be prepared. So I would plan ahead, think about what might be and how you could configure your restaurant to make that compliant. So, you know, someone said to me, nothing bad ever happened from being early. So planning is part of being early and thinking ahead about what you might need to do. So that's pretty much what I have to say about restaurants, and we'll know more. It's going to come. I think maybe the middle of May has been sort of talked about, but I wouldn't even guarantee that because it really depends on the case count. And in Montrose County, if we had a surge in the cases of COVID-19, we'd have to re-examine that process. So we're wanting to be reasonable with businesses, but we also want to be safe. So that's
Great.
County Commissioner.
Thank you. And a couple of things that I have seen just in other communities, ideas, not that we want to do anything bad to the environment, but during this time I've seen restaurants before they closed using paper menus so they could just dispose of that with each customer that came through. Yep. I saw businesses going back to straws, which, you know, say what you might want to say about that, but that makes the customer feel safer by using something that is disposed of instead of drinking out of the glass directly, things like that. Yeah. So just things to think about.
Plus even Chelsea, closing some streets, thinking about, you know, outdoor dining, spreading things out. I mean, again, this is not the time. This is really where you could really let your creativity go. How can we still achieve this? And if you can assure safe distancing, I think you're going to have a good chance of being able to keep everybody safe in your restaurant. So yeah, good ideas, Chelsea.
Yeah, totally. And I know that the city will be very flexible.
I knew we'd get straws back.
The city will be very flexible where we can with road closures or partial closures, parklets, you know, those type of things to help restaurants get open. Good morning to Mayor Bynum this morning. She's asking if the plan is to follow the state recommendations, reference restaurants. Is that your understanding too?
You know, for people that don't know the government, the way it works is that the county is really just an extension of the state. And so we will be following the state guidelines, and where they're vague, we interpret it in a more reasonable way. But we're working with the city to make sure we all are in agreement so that that we all are communicating the same message. So, but yes, we'll be following the state guidelines, and you know, just so people understand, once you declare an emergency, I mean, your emergency reimbursement money is in jeopardy if you go against what the state guidelines are. So we have no intention of doing that. We want to make sure that we keep, number one, keep people safe.
Yes, and also have no intention of being more strict than the guidelines unless there were some unforeseen surge or something to that effect. Is that correct?
Yeah, and Barb said, you know, we wouldn't be more strict. You cannot, when the state guidelines come out, you can't be looser than the state, but you could be more restrictive. We do not intend to do that. Just so everybody rest assured, you'll get sleep tonight. We're not going to do that.
We like to find a way to yes, as much as we can. So
exactly.
Absolutely. Great. Well, as we transition into the next part of the presentation about innovations, which we sort of were already talking about, I wanted to put you on the spot a little bit, Sue, and thinking about Montrose County and things that have obviously changed just in the operations of your organization, not so much with the public, but what you're doing as an organization and things that have changed that you might think about carrying forward as we move through this pandemic.
Well, you know, one of the things that we rolled out to the employees was how do you think you'll be doing business differently in the future? And when you think about now that we have people all working remotely, that it was kind of a forced transition where businesses in the past were like, I don't know, are my workers really going to do their job? Am I going to get my full 8 hours out of them or 10? What we find in the county, I mean, especially in the leadership directors, people are working long hours. So they're getting their work done. So I think what I would encourage people to do is think about the way we're doing business now and start, instead of, it used to be the old day was if somebody sat in their desk for 8 hours, a manager would walk by and go, oh, I got a good day's work out of that person, right? Now, what we need to do is put in place metrics so that we, I mean, if somebody gets their metrics done in 5 or 6 hours, is that productive? That's productive, right? So I think that we're looking at different ways of doing business, and I think the remote thing will not go away. It really think about it from a government perspective. New buildings, do you need much space? Can people work from home? Are they as productive? Is the job getting done? So we're managing differently, and then people are working differently. So, and hopefully people are happier. I would hope that that's a byproduct of it too. Have you noticed that too in the city?
Absolutely, especially all of us introverts, or according to DISC assessment, low I's. We're thriving in this environment, being very productive, but also getting to interact with people in this way. So we are certainly finding that at the city as well. One question for you, completely unrelated.
Is that the dump day?
Do you know when the county will have a free dump day?
I do not know that, but that's a great question. I'll put that on top of my list. Dump day.
Okay, well, we've been talking at the city level about spring cleanup and when we might be able to offer that, and that would sort of coincide with when the landfill is comfortable with doing that day and, you know, how that all plays out. So if you care about spring cleanup or free dump day, stay tuned. We're talking about dates in June and maybe later. So it's not something that we've forgotten about, but something that we're certainly trying to do in a safe way. All right, well, thanks, Sue. I'm going to transition over to the second part and share my screen with a presentation. If you can stay the whole time, great. If not, we understand that. Please.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Busy woman. Thank you for being here this morning. All right, we are going to transition over to the presentation this morning, which is continuing on with innovations. So business adaptations that stick. These are things that we've seen in the community here in Montrose, examples right here in Montrose of businesses who have really come out ahead as leaders, and there are lots of other businesses who are doing great things in the community. So please don't think just because we featured these ones, these are the only businesses doing great things. That's not true at all. But these are some great examples of innovations we've seen during this time. So the first organization that we'll focus on is the Pig Place. And so Melanie Hall is the executive director there. And, you know, being a medical organization, they've really had to pivot and pivot quickly, like all of us. And they've thought a lot about technology. So establishing telehealth to provide video appointments to patients for behavioral health, especially, that's been something that's been really successful for them. And then also medical. They were actually having issues with people being able to access their telehealth from home, whether it was their device or their internet connection or whatever the case may be. And so they also found a way for people to drive up to the clinic and access the Wi-Fi at the clinic and have their telehealth appointment actually right in the parking lot. And so that was a really great pivot that I thought was a wonderful way to meet people where they are and not have a certain expectation of a client base, but rather help them be successful with you during the change. And then Pig Place was actually one of the first movers on the city's cooperative grant. And so they worked with other practices and they're jointly promoting health and specifically telehealth, just to let people know it's still okay to go see your doctor for normal things. For any other conditions, it's okay, it's safe. There's ways that we can do that. And so they partnered up with, you know, organizations who would normally be considered competitors, and they're marketing together. And so that is the exact example of what we were hoping to see in the community, is a togetherness, a rising of all ships with the tide. And if you've seen these ads, they're really great. They go back to the theme of house calls, and the traditional house call back in the day is how it used to be, and you can have that now just with telehealth. So that's a really great example from Pick Place, and thanks to Melanie Hall for her willingness to share her ideas. Next up, we have Storm King Distilling. I know we've had David on this webinar before. David Fishing is one of the founders of the business, and they started right away with to-go cocktails. They were really in tune with what the state regulations were. They were in contact with the city and county the entire time. And so they've started pre-mixing cocktails into the bottle, and you can see above David's head the bottle of whiskey. That's the size of bottle that they're pre-mixing all of their cocktail flavors into, sealing them up and sending people on their way. Labeling it, making it safe, talking to people about how they can best enjoy the cocktail as they're standing there making it, having a conversation from 6 feet away, and then talking to them about how long the cocktails will last, just really providing top-notch customer service. But also, if you've been to Storm King, you know that these bottles of concoctions are not inexpensive. They're quite pricey, and that's helped them to keep their revenue stream up, and people are loving them, and they've decided that they're probably going to carry that forward. And another thing that they have done at Storm King is social media. So keeping it positive, posting often, and that's a theme that we'll see throughout. I think people, much like a couple weeks ago when we had Caitlin Love on here talking about how to do this, social media has become really important, and it's forced a lot of businesses into learning how to do it better. And also it's allowed time for businesses to learn how to do it better and more effectively to engage their client base. And so Storm King has certainly been a leader in that, and letting people know what they have, teaching their customers to come to the social media channels to find out what's going on, what the drink special might be, what the, they had something yesterday for Cinco de Mayo, just all of those type of things. Hats off to Storm King and the way they've innovated in this time. As we talk about these ideas, think about it in the way that it would apply to your organization, whether you run a golf course or a second-hand store, anything like that. There's ways that you can innovate in your business type or your organization type with all of these ideas. The next example, and I'm wearing a CrossFit t-shirt as a shout out to this business here, CrossFit Agoge with John and Kelly Brown as the owners. They've done an excellent job of creating value for their clients during this time. And so again, this is one of those businesses that has a little bit of a pricier price point in order to be engaged. And so you can imagine the panic of a business owner was like, we're charging our customers or our clients this high rate. How do we continue to provide that value when our doors have to be closed? And so nearly immediately, John and Kelly began programming at-home workouts for people. And they had each of their trainers come on every day and talk about what the workout would be, how to modify, how to scale by using things like grocery bags filled with groceries or rocks, your front step as a box to jump up on, just a lot of different, quick modifications to keep people working out. And so right here, you'll see one of their trainers, Heidi, and her dog, and that would come on every day, and I'm part of their community. And so as a community, we were able to engage with one another and be part of that community together. And so, this can be, again, translated to any business, and this can move forward too, even after things start to open up about, how can people show their support remotely? How can they engage with your business via social? And that's worked really well for them. People post their workouts or photos of their workouts online, and oops, sorry, going the wrong way. It's been really engaging for the clients. And I've heard from John and Kelly that they've only lost about 7 members out of hundreds. And so I think that's a testament to the value that they've created. Another idea that I really love that John and Kelly have had is they've called a lot of their members. And we all know our regulars in our businesses. If it's a coffee shop, what they're ordering, the people who come in and buy from you every week. And so get them on the phone, text them, reach out to them via social media, and do it from a standpoint of, how's your family? Is there anything we can do to support you? Not the standpoint of, oh, hi, I'm just checking in to make sure you're going to still be here for me, but more of how can I be here for you during this time? And so I thought that was a really great sort of pivot. And I know John and Kelly have called a lot of the members who they haven't heard from just to check in on them, and have heard a lot of interesting stories about how people are handling this time. Next up, we have Shishi Boutique with Kimberly McGehee, the owner. And I had the pleasure of stopping by on the first day that they were able to reopen downtown last week, and it was really exciting. But in this time, Kimberly's really innovated with her team and done live fashion shows. And so this has allowed the clientele to see what's in the inventory of the store and to keep customers engaged. It also helps staff sort of be excited and remain engaged with the work and to think about different ways and that they can move forward. And thinking about this fashion show, well, why couldn't we have a fashion show once we can gather again on Main Street, you know, during a farm to table dinner event or something like that. And so this can always carry forward as we move forward in the practices of what's happening with this. And then Shishi fixes. I love this one. If you've heard of Stitch Fix or Bark Box or a lot of those different things, Kimberly was able to pivot very quickly and ask customers a few questions about their size, price point, lifestyle, and they of course styled for their customers, picking several items for ladies to try on at home. And then they would make their final selection, send back the items that they didn't want, and then just have a credit card on file to charge for the items that they did want. And so she told me as we were talking about this, that people are hoping that this carries forward, that she continues doing it, that customers want to do it definitely on a quarterly or a seasonal basis. And then you see here, this is a box that went to Texas to a customer who wanted to engage in this. So really cool ideas from these 4 organizations and ways that we can think about pivoting. I am going to take just a pause here and look. Oh, okay. Just comments about the dog in the CrossFit picture. Awesome. Okay. And so these last ideas were provided by John Brown, the owner of CrossFit. He just had some other thoughts about ways that businesses could pivot. So we all know about loyalty giveaways. With every 5 purchases of a pound of coffee, you get a free drink, or, you know, something of that nature, but you can start to think about that right now if it's not something that you're doing currently. And I know a lot of businesses also don't believe in discounting, and if that's your business, then that's totally fine. There's other ways that you can keep customers engaged and loyal. I really like this one, home delivery surprises. So video yourself dropping off a free t-shirt or other merchandise at someone's house on their front porch. A lot of businesses have customer addresses, or you can check in with them and let them know that you want to drop something off for them. You know, again, don't knock on the door, just drop it off on the front porch. Really cool stuff, a really great way for people to feel like they value and they're part of your business's community without having that face-to-face interaction. It just reminds them of who you are and that you're still there for them. Number 3, for food businesses, bars, you know, anything like that, perhaps like a Zoom mixology or a cooking class that's live, just like this, a webinar. You can register, you can make them registration based, just like this webinar is, email a shopping list needed for the class to be held at a scheduled time, or you can have people pick up the ingredients for you. So when John and I were brainstorming this, we were thinking about horsefly and the Bavarian burger, which happens to be my favorite. So could people pick up all the ingredients for the Bavarian burger and then sort of grill the burger themselves and put together the ingredients on the live Zoom? And it could even be like a 10-minute little tutorial, or you could do a tutorial pre-recorded, post it to your social media, and then have people swing by and pick up the ingredients. I know that Amazing Glaze was talking about doing this, putting together painting kits and then putting on classes where people can paint along with the supplies that she has ready to go. Another one, ask me anything. So this can be either live or in the comments of your social media platforms. Have your founder, CEO, your mixology specialist, your brewer, have an ask anything session where people can come on live and ask, you know, what's the most unexpected ingredient in the new Mexican lager that Horsefly has? Or, you know, how do you come up with these really hard workouts? Or where do you get your really beautiful inventory for Shishi? You know, just any type of question like that, have a online live ask me anything. So just a few ideas that we thought might be transferable to all different types of businesses and organizations. We know there are a ton of other ideas out there. We know that, you know, the backs of businesses in Montrose are strong, and that you have been enduring and that you have been carrying forward, and that you each have done something special to make your business or your organization move forward through this. And so I'm excited to see what that looks like. Happened to be on an interview with some other community business professionals last night, and talking about one of the questions that was asked by the interviewer was, you know, do you think that your small businesses will fail and your big box stores will prevail? as a result of all of this? And I said, absolutely not, because in Montrose, we have such a strong business community of really smart and diverse people who come from all different backgrounds. We had a diversified economy that is proving itself right now. And it's not perfect. We know it's hard times, but we also know that everybody is going to push forward and carry through to the other side of this. And we also know that we have a customer base, both regionally and locally, that love our small businesses, and they're going to be there for you, and we're there for you. And we just hope that, you know, you reach out if there's anything you need, but keep on fighting the good fight. We've seen a lot of positivity in the last week or so. And I just want to thank, you know, Kimberly, Melanie, John and Kelly Brown, and David Fishering for sharing their ideas for this webinar this morning. Thanks Sue Hansen for being here, and Kate for moderating, and all of you for attending. It looks like we have about 50 people on this morning. So that's awesome, close to 50, 45 people. So thank you all for joining us. One thing I did forget to mention earlier when we were talking about restaurants was that the governor has said that he will give at least 1 week notice. So it could be longer, but it will be at least 1 week before restaurants will be scheduled to open, that there will be notice to prepare things and get things ready. We know a lot of you have had to lay staff off, you have lost staff, you're gonna have to be pivoting to get people in ready to work. It looks like Bill checked in with Public Works, and we were told that the landfill will have their free dump day most likely in late May, but the exact date hasn't been set. And then the city will hold spring cleanup following their free dump day, mostly in early June, most likely in early June. So great answer to that question. Thanks, Bill, for checking into that. All right, everyone. Well, same time, same place next week. We're going to monitor what's happening with Governor Polis. The changes, you know, he has a press conference 3 times a week typically, and you can follow along on his social media if you're interested in that. But otherwise, we at the local level will be translating what is said and his orders and bringing them to you as our local community. And so we'll be talking about all of those changes on this call every week. And if you have ideas or things that you'd like to learn from this, please let us know, and we'd be happy to feature, you know, that topic, or talk about, you know, maybe we could have a live Q&A section with Bill or Sue, or, you know, someone like that, that just general business questions if you might have those. So thanks again, getting you out of here 3 minutes early. We really appreciate you being here, and go forth and make it an awesome day. You guys rock, and just keep on keeping on.